So, good evening, everyone. I would like to welcome you to our MSc seminar series, the MSc in Environmental Conservation and Management. This is the last seminar of this academic year, and as they say in English, not least. So for me, it's a pleasure for today to welcome Professor Emilio Padoa-Schioppa from the University of Milano-Bicocca, giving a seminar entitled The Anthropocene, a New Epoch for the Earth, a New Challenge for Humanity. I know Emilio for many years, more than 20 years perhaps. We had parallel courses, but we didn't actually have the chance to work together in the past, and this is something we've been trying to rectify the last year or so. So just a short note on Professor Padoa-Schioppa. He's an associate professor of ecology at the University of Milano-Bicocca. His main interests are linked to landscape ecology and conservation biology. He teaches landscape ecology in the environmental science degree at the University of Milano-Bicocca, biology and didactics of biology for the science of primary education, the same university obviously, and introduction to sustainability, ecosystem services, and advanced human ecology for the doctoral school of the University of Milano-Bicocca. Emilio is also head president of the Italian Society of Landscape Ecology, and he has published extensively, and he has collaborated with many eminent scientists in Europe and beyond. So without any actually further ado, Emilio, the floor is yours. Great to have you with us.
Thanks, Yannis. Good evening, everybody. I'm sorry I'm not able to speak in Greek, so I will do the seminar in English, in my Italian English, and okay. My theme for this evening is speaking about the Anthropocene, and I divided the presentation explaining the concept of this word, and then how it's linked to the history of the Earth that can be seen as an history of interacting systems. Then we will discuss a little about dating this new epoch for the Earth, and see some data of the human footprint. And one of the points that for me is quite interesting is that studying the Anthropocene means a transdisciplinary approach. And we will conclude with a perspective and conclusion at the end. So the word Anthropocene, if you open a dictionary of the 20th century, you didn't find, because it was proposed, really proposed for the first time by Paul Crutzen, a Nobel Prize for Chemistry, that in 1999 in a Congress he told it's a pity that we are still officially living in an age called the Holocene, because we must recognize that human dominance on biological system, chemical system, geological process on Earth is an undeniable reality. And when he used those words, he told, okay, we must recognize that we live in an age called Anthropocene. The majority of scientists agree with him. And after this Congress, he realized that also another professor of biology in an unofficial way used this word, and they published together short notes called The Geology of Mankind, and obviously Paul Crutzen was a Nobel Prize for Chemistry, so he has a strong voice, and he told the good thing in the good moment. In the same year, you see, this book, Something New Under the Sun, is an history, is a book written by an historian. he said the real new thing in the 20th century is that human activity changed everything. So they started from this point, and now, after 20 years, we see that a cover of nature or a cover of the economists that they recognize the reality of the Anthropocene. To understand a little more what is happening, I think it makes sense have a very short and fast look to the history of the Earth, and probably Robert Hudson, with this book, The Story of the Earth. Robert Hudson is a geologist. He wrote the most convincing and most appealing history. He described in 10 different phases from the formation of the Earth a little more than 4.5 billion of years ago, then the formation of the Moon, then the formation of the first basalt crust, and then the oceans, the granite crust, then the origin of life, the long time of photosynthesis and the great oxidation, then what he call the boring billion is 1 billion of years apparently boring. He say for many years geologists say that doesn't happen nothing in this billion of years, but it's not correct. He demonstrated that the oxidation caused by photosynthesis lead a mineral revolution, so the formation of many minerals that we have on the surface of the Earth. Then the short time of white Earth, the snowball hothouse cycle, and then the last 500 millions of years is the green Earth with the rise of terrestrial biosphere. So in this very long history, what is quite clear and was proposed for the first time also by a Russian ecologist, Vernadsky, is this is an history of interacting systems. So in the beginning, let's say atmosphere, lithosphere, and the hydrosphere after the formation of the oceans started to interact and change each other. And then we have something that we call chemosphere, and chemosphere became a biosphere, and later inside the biosphere we have an ape, Homo sapiens, then now as an influence on the other systems. So, and here we can see also another way to tell more or less the similar things. Again, we start from the formation of the Earth, the first event is the Moon forming a collision, and then all the things that happened and influenced each other. And so, in that way now, we can reach the Anthropocene. As Crutzen tried to say, the Anthropocene is something that can be written inside the International Chronostratigraphic Chart, so inside the geological reconstruction of time and on phase. And now the geologists, they recognize that Anthropocene is an epoch. So probably you know the geological time is a nested system. It's not really different from our time. Well, we have a week, inside of the week we have the days, inside of the days we have hours and so on. So it's not really different. And they recognize Anthropocene as an epoch, but they are discussing about when this epoch starts. And there are, this is a still open debate. I want to show you there are 5 different hypotheses, and now we will discuss each of them. One is the megafauna extinction, then the rise of agriculture, and inside the rise of agriculture, we have a different proposal: the origin of farming, or the increase of rice production, or the formation of anthropogenic soils, and so on. Then another one is a new old world collision, so when European invaded Americas, and then the rise of an industrial revolution, or the great acceleration of the 20th century. Let us see something more about it. The first hypothesis is a megafauna extinction. When Homo sapiens spread from Africa into the other continent, it caused large extinction in all the continent. As you can see from this map, all the black animals are now extinct, and this extinction is quite clearly caused by human hunting. He was a good hunter, and those big mammals, they were not able to escape from an hunter that hunted cooperating with fire. So this is the first big anthropic change to the world, because after the extinction of the big mammals, the most abundant biome on the earth, the cold grassland, disappear, and the forest increase, especially in Asia and in North America. The other option is with the rise of agriculture and animal domestication. It's quite clear that this changed a lot of the human societies. When we move from hunters and gatherers to farmers, this means we started to build a village, and then a town, and then to have a kingdom, and something totally different. As Jared Diamond explained very well, the domestication of big mammals also lead Eurasian people to have a strong influence in all of the other part of the world. Something else, at least Simon Lewis say, okay, the beginning of the Anthropocene is with the Columbian exchange. The Columbian exchange means that for the first time, the economy in all the part of the world were linked. It is something tragic if we think, because exactly European invaded America, and this means that a lot of original inhabitants of America were killed directly by European army, or by germs bring from Europe. And so we have a way of economy where from Europe we send some arms in Africa. From Africa we get slaves to America, and from America raw material, gold, silver, and so on in Europe and in Asia as well. So it was the first time in the human history that all the economy are linked one with the other. And also there were some ecological consequences, because we exchange a lot of species, and exactly what ecologists call Columbian exchange. Just to think, in this Mediterranean area now we have a tomato that came from America, and in northern part of Europe we plant a potato or corn or something like that. So and in some part of Americas now we have vineyards and so on. The other option is starting with the Industrial Revolution. So when we start to burn, to use energy in a new way, and this obviously started to pump in the atmosphere carbon dioxide and something like that. The last option is to recognize that in the middle of the 20th century, a great acceleration, that means an increase of human population, an increase of the economy, an increase of the urban population, of the growth of all socioeconomic indicators, but also an increase of carbon dioxide in atmosphere, an increase of all the Earth system trend is recognized. And the picture you see of a nuclear explosion means that we have also a stratigraphic sign linked to radioactive material and the residual of explosion. Sorry, just one thing. Among all these possibilities, what is the best? According with stratigraphy, and other stratigrapher that must say officially, this is the point for a new epoch. They call this a golden spoke, but according with them, the best candidates are great acceleration or Columbian exchange. Columbian exchange is a little difficult to explain, but there is a clear sign that after invasion of Europeans, in the whole atmosphere, the carbon dioxide decreased for 1 century, and this is quite evident in sediments. But as I told, they didn't really decide. So from my point of view, makes sense to use the great acceleration as a starting point of the Anthropocene. But what I really want to say is that it's not really important. The point is that there is the Anthropocene. This is the real new. Then, okay, we need to fix a starting point, but all these events are linked one to the other. We can't have a nuclear explosion without an industrial revolution. Industrial revolution happened because we invaded America, and we were able to invade America because we domesticated bigger mammals, and probably we domesticated those big mammals because we extincted all the others. So in that way is a chain linked, and I understand that we understand that for geology we need a starting point, but doesn't change it too much. Let's say just some data probably you know about our human footprint on Earth systems. This is the result of a study of Stockholm Resilience Institute, and they show quite clearly that in different environmental systems we went beyond the border of our history. So what they want to say is that in biosphere integrity, in biochemical flows, in part on climate change, we move the system in some part that is absolutely outside our history. We can see also in this graph is once again came from Stockholm Resilience Institute, and they show that now the Earth is outside the regular cycle, glacial, interglacial of the past thousands of years. And this is maybe more clear. Let me say, it came from my department, but not from me, but our colleagues that are studying the paleoatmosphere, and they go in Greenland or in Antarctic continent, and they collect the ice, and inside the ice they can recognize the atmosphere. So what is interesting now, this map, this graph, is in Italian, but you probably can understand it started 800,000 years ago. So before that Homo sapiens appeared on the Earth, because we are the pink line here, this pink line on the right, and the blue line is carbon dioxide in atmosphere. The black line is the temperature, and is quite clear, as we know that when there is more carbon dioxide, the temperature is warmer, and a lower level of carbon dioxide, the temperature is cold, is more cold. So it's quite clear, nothing new, I suppose. The point is, as we can see, that there are cycles that we can understand, and obviously cycles before, up and down, before Homo sapiens cannot be a responsibility of Homo sapiens. So this is quite clear. But now we are here. So we are in a totally new situation for our history, and for the history of the last 800,000 years, and I can say that now they reconstructed in that way. They reached more than 1 million of years, 1.5 million of years, and still is the same kind of history. Something about biodiversity. This kind of result is a study. It was carried out not very far from here, because it's from Israel University. Colleagues, they estimated the biomass of different, for instance, for birds, and we see that the majority of birds are chicken and turkey and domesticated birds that we use, and the 30% are wild birds. And more impressive, if we estimate and the result of biomass of terrestrial mammals, because the 60% are domesticated mammals, the 36% are humans, and just the 4% are wild terrestrial mammals. So it is difficult to say that we don't have a footprint on biodiversity when we look to those numbers. And at the end, we recognize that we are leading a sixth mass extinction, and the cause are climate change, habitat destruction, invasive species, population, pollution, overharvesting, are normally are all linked to each other and influence each other. Population, animal population, or plant population can suffer for climate change and for habitat destruction, and so the impact is even stronger. Some other data, this probably you know, is the map of Alice and Ramankati that they recognize. Now we must speak about anthropogenic biomes of the world. They say the map of biome doesn't represent anymore the reality we observe. And we propose this new map that I think in the next books of ecology these will be the biomes that we will study: urban and dense settlement, village, croplands, rangelands, forests, and the wildlands in that way. We have also some economic and social data to consider. I want to show you just two or three about them. This is on the left. we see the increase of human population during the 20th century. We started with the 20th century that we were around 2 billions of humans, and now we are 8 billions. So, and if you see also the other graph is the increase of gross domestic product. So give an idea of the increase of economy in all this time. And I want also to show these sociologists call these Milanovic elephants, because you see that it's quite similar to an elephant. And the point quite interesting is that he divided the human population in percentile of global wealth, and for the years 1990, 2000, and 2010, he measured the growth of income. And what we see is that very rich people, they earn much more money. Middle class in the Western society, they lose power, they lose money, and probably this helps us to understand the situation of today, why so many people in Western countries are not really happy. And then middle class in emerging countries like China, like Brazil, like India are earning money. In percentage, they earn more than rich people, but obviously they start from a much lower level. And then there are, again, poor people that still is poor people, and they are losing. And the last things, probably you know, this equation was proposed by an ecologist, Paul Ehrlich, in 80 years, and also if it is very simple, and in some cases there are some criticism on this, but I think give quite well the idea that human impact on the Earth is linked to the dimension of population, of course, to the technology and to the use of technology that we call affluence, so the per capita use of technology. And this is, I think, is a quite valid approach to describe our impact on the Earth systems. Okay, so one point, if we arrive here, is why we are running the world. And I think that a good explanation was proposed by this historian, Yuval Harari, that he say, okay, we are able to, if we think 70,000 years ago, we were more or less an ape in a corner of Africa, thinking at our business, and our impact was similar to some yellowfish or birds or something like that. And now we control the world. I say probably because we are able to cooperate, and also there is a cooperation in many species of animals, but if normally they cooperate in large number, like bees, like ants, the cooperation is not flexible. So bee cannot change a system day night, and they cannot kill the queen and establish a republic of bee or something like that. And so they have a very fixed system. And chimpanzee, they have a lot of flexibility, but they need to know each other. If I am a chimpanzee and I want to cooperate, I need to know very well the other chimpanzee. Otherwise, I not cooperate. And the humans are able to cooperate in very large number with a lot of flexibility. And the reason probably is our imagination. As explained, some ethologists, we started to have imagination, building tools to get a result. This also chimpanzees do. You see in this picture an old experiment of chimpanzee, but that building something similar to a staircase to get a banana on the ceiling. But what chimpanzees are able to do is build a tool to get a result. But they are not able to build a tool to build a new tool to get a result. And according with Harari, his hypothesis is that the human push the imagination so far that now we live in a dual reality. We have a physical reality, like all of the other animals. Physical reality are mountains, are trees and fields and everything. We can touch, we can see, we can smell, we can eat. So this is physical reality. But then there are fictional stories that we believe. And give as an example, money. Money is a very successful story. I can use a piece of paper that I cannot eat, I cannot drink, I can do nothing with it. But I can meet a person totally stranger to me and say, okay, this is $1, and for $1 you can give me 10 banana, and this works, and I can eat. Then I can eat a banana. With chimpanzee, you cannot do like this. They trade. They can exchange one fruit with another. But if you propose to a chimpanzee one piece of paper without any value, and asking him now give me your banana, it never happens. So this approach with this kind of fictional history was really successful, and one of the points thinking to the crisis of the Anthropocene, the ecological crisis of the Anthropocene, is that maybe we must become better storytellers than wizards such as bankers or lawyers or people like that. And I want to propose some perspective. One, I think here is quite clear, the idea of sustainability, and to propose in three different approaches: mitigate our approach, our impact, compensation, and adaptation of change, because we know that the inertia of the system is quite big. And about new perspectives or a new story that we must tell. One, we need to change the economy. The idea, the time of the economy of cowboys or infinite space, infinite resource are over. Now we must move to the economy of space, where is a circular economy. We recycle everything, and we know that okay, if you stay in a space shuttle or something like that, you have a limited space, limited resource, and you cannot waste nothing. Then another story that we believe, more or less, all of us, is a nation state as that once again is a fictional story, is not real, but we like such kind of history, and now we must move beyond the nation state level. And we must tell something new also for laws and rights, and so what is called the justice of the Anthropocene. So not only national justice, not only justice for humans, but also for non-humans entity, and justice across a generation that is directly the application of sustainability. And this is the result of a study of an English economist She called this donut economy, and the idea is that we need to reach a safe and just space for humanity, taking into account the boundary of the Earth that you see in the external part of this picture, and so we need to have an ecological ceiling, and then also some social and economic foundation for our space, and we needed to so everyone needs water, food, health, education, and so on and so on. And as an ecologist, let me say that it's time for ecologists to enter in the war room. Maybe some of you recognize in the picture on the right is a movie of Kubrick, and is the history of a crisis, and a crazy pilot want to leave nuclear bombs over the Soviet Union, and they try to stop him, and they discuss, and the majority of the movie is exactly inside the war room, and we know that the people inside the war room in the beginning of 20th century were military, and we had the First World War, then physicists, and we had something, let's say, in the beginning, nuclear bomb, and then also movement for peace that was animated also from physics. Now, from 70 years to now, people inside the war room are liberal economists. They think they are scientists. I'm not so sure that really they are scientists, but I think it's time to change. And some other conclusion, quite clear. All the data, let's say, of the human population, like in this case, for the next future, thinks that there would be a new geopolitical time needed by population numbers. This is an estimate of the dimension of the country, according with the idea that in 2050 we reach 10 billion of inhabitants. And I think for us European and also for North American, we become more or less irrelevant according with the number of population. The whole Nigeria will have more inhabitants than Western Europe or something like that. There will be also, this is an example of the ecological transition. Now in Europe we are discussing a lot about that, but that means that we need new materials like rare minerals, and this lead new problems. So we needed to take in account something like that. On the left, you see a map with the 10 most productive country of natural gas, and then also the whole European Union. And on the right, a map of the country that have rare minerals that we need for battery, for all the electronic stuff we need exactly for the ecological transition. And obviously, the idea that we can have a big planet, and as Bezos or Musk say, okay, we can go on Mars or something like that, is a wrong way, because we have just this planet, so there is no planet B, is quite true, and we needed to take in account. And finally, often when we think to limit the emission of carbon dioxide and so on, we say, okay, this is a problem for economy, but this is not really true. Limits can become an opportunity, and the history of industrial manufacture explain exactly that way. So there is no reason to say, okay, if we want to limit our emission or to respect biodiversity, the economy will collapse. In the past, it didn't happen in that way. When we move from towards the unleaded gasoline, for instance, in the beginning, Ford and Chrysler and so on, they told you want to close our industry, but it didn't happen in that way. They sold much more cars. Maybe we had other problems, but so it's not true thinking that the limits are only limits. Okay, I think that is all for now, and thanks for the attention.
Emilio, thank you very much. A lot of things to think and discuss in such a short time. Obviously, you started by saying that you believe in the transdisciplinary approach, and this was obvious during the presentation. So we went from ecology, sociology to economics.
Yeah.
I will start with the first question, which is not necessarily a scientific one. We still train students as ecologists or economists or sociologists.
Yeah.
It's obvious that we need to know a bit of everything in order to, if we manage to get out of this trouble in the Anthropocene. But how do you do that in formal education? I mean, you have a great experience in teaching in universities, very different courses, and you're trying with new courses beyond ecology. So what's your views on that?
Well, my vision is that, yes, you are true. Till now, we think economy and the science and maybe social science or laws are quite far one from the other. I can say that obviously, I think in Western society, universities normally are the most conservative place you can find after church, but so it's quite difficult to convince colleagues that maybe students of economy, they can have also some course in general ecology, and then to convince ecologists that the ecology for economists is not exactly the ecologist for biologists or something like that. Maybe an economist that doesn't need to know very well Volterra laws or biogeographic McCaffrey and Wilson laws of biogeography, but he needed to understand how ecological systems are working. And so it's difficult to do this. The good news that I can say, it happened to me exactly when I started to, okay, I wrote in Italian the book on the Anthropocene, and exactly what I realized is that now a lot of people from law faculties or asking me to do a seminar, or because they thought, okay, we saw your book, we saw that you speak also about law, and we understand that there is something that is important also for us. So definitely now is more than 20 years that we are speaking about ecological crisis, and probably in that way now the ground is a little more ready to have this exchange. Coming back to some bad news, if you remember Edward Wilson, more than 20 years ago, he wrote a book called The Consilience, and the idea is exactly that we need something in common, and the reaction in especially humanities faculty was horrible. How he can speak how we can suppose that we have something in common with a man that is specialized in ants and nothing more, and they were wrong. But yeah, I know that. Certainly, I think we need to try to speak each other, and also to understand. I want to say, obviously, I think ecology, such kind of general ecology is important for everyone, as well as for biologists or environmental scientists. Knowing something about economy, knowing something about world history is quite important. And so it's a double way.
Okay.
Yeah.
Allow me to ask another question, and then I'll give I'll open the question to the ones present in the class and the platform, and the ones present in the room. You talk about ecologists in the war room. So two questions really. First of all, how do you get ecologists in the war room or in the decision makers room?
Throwing out liberal economists. Normally, it's not so.
And let me finish the question. And the second question is: do you think actually ecologists are interested to actually get into the war rooms or the decision-making rooms?
Well, yeah. Obviously, both are very good questions. Obviously, entering in a war room or let's say to be very close to decision makers is a complicated process, and it's not exactly that you are knocking on the door and say, okay, I'm an ecologist, I want to enter in the war room, well, welcome, and so on. It doesn't work in that way. Often what happens is that when we demonstrate to the decision maker that they have a problem and we can propose a solution, this is the way to enter. What about ecologists? I remember in the Italian Society of Ecology, 15 years ago, we had a discussion about that. Do we need to enter in the war room? And some of the colleagues say absolutely no. We are scientists and we want to stay in they didn't use this word, but to me give this impression in our ivory tower, and we are not interested because we are interested to science, and we think that science cannot have a compromise with power and something like that. Other colleagues think we need to enter, we need to be part of the process and to give a contribution exactly because we have environmental problems, as well as I think I don't know very well the history of physics, but I'm quite sure that in the 30 and 40 years they were discussing, shall we help government to use nuclear weapons and shall we do this or not? And some of them exactly also because they understand what happened, they decide, okay, I give my knowledge not only to United States but also to Soviet Union, because this means balancing of powers. And so I'm sure that if you give a look to the history of development of physics, we found something like that. That probably some of us is not really interested. Some of us think that it can give a contribution for a better world. And
okay, thank you. Do you have any questions on the platform? You can raise your hand, please, or you can type your question on the chat. While you're thinking, I'll ask the ones who are present in this room. Any questions for Emilio? Yes, Sally.
So it's more like to continue with the discussion because I think it's very important topic. climate change. And I think, like, following what you said right now, this is what I think this situation with climate change actually gives us. It gives us the opportunity to become familiar with other aspects, because it's not an environmental problem only.
Yeah.
It's a social problem as well, and it affects all levels and all aspects of life, all forms of life. Therefore, in my like perspective, there are only a few things that can actually make or force or maybe like convince people to actually find out something more than the things that they were trained to learn. And I think it is, yes, this opportunity, like climate change and this whole science that is now developing around this problem, generate like people who are more wisdom, like who are more wise, who have wisdom, because there is some serious problems that we will have to face in a few years. So yes, I believe that it's not to like force ecologists or like encourage ecologists to like say something else besides ecology, but it's the necessity, and this is what climate change in the Anthropocene, I guess, will have an impact to. Like, it will force, and it will basically make people, it will create the necessity to people to compensate and to like deal with this problem. And hopefully it will generate like wise people and who will make like better selections or like better choices in the future. But this is the optimistic view. And then like abruptly we go back to reality, which is business as usual, because climate change is not something new. And the elements that we have that justify the fact that there is an ongoing warming of the planet, is not something new. It's like from the 80s or even before, I'm not sure. But no, we are in 2022. Carbon dioxide is increasing. We have like the icebergs melting, changes like many environmental changes, but economic growth is still growing. And we talk about sustainability, and sometimes I feel a bit like, what's sustainable? What's sustainability in a capitalistic framework?
Yeah, well, I'm aware about that, of course. And yes, I think one of the main problems is that the economy and even worse, politics, they have a very short time vision. So for a politician, the point is that I must be re-elected after 5 years. So I'm not really interested to do something that in the beginning maybe it has a cost, and then the result arrive after 20 years. And this is one point that slow a lot of decision, and exactly the idea is that we take a decision just running behind something. So arrive at the COVID and say, okay, we want to reconstruct the European economy. Then now we have a war, and the idea, but we are buying gas from Putin, that is a very bad boy. So now we have to, that is not really important, the climate change. You can open carbon mines and so on. So something is happening now, and few people try exactly to look in the next 20 or 40 or 50 years. And the point is that the politicians don't do, because also people who is doing election don't do like that, because and yes, this is a reason to be pessimistic about this point. The other thing that I must recognize is that exactly in the political point of view, the new generation are much more aware that they will live part of their life in a world that is much more problematic than now. And so they have a stronger request to change something. And obviously, COVID and the lockdown changed the movement of Greta Thunberg, but they were able to influence much more than in the past, I think. I don't know if I answered exactly to your point or to your comments, but okay.
No, yeah, I mean, it's more like raising concerns and like making a discussion in order to like more like brainstorming about
I agree.
Any other questions? Any other comments? Anything from the platform? Yes, it is.
Yeah, may I have a okay?
Of course.
Oh, sorry, I'm trying to share the video. Okay, thank you. It was an excellent presentation. I really enjoyed it. Very interesting. I wanted to ask you, because you said you showed us 2 slides towards the end, and you showed us basically what needs to be done by humanity. So one of the points that you made was that we need to reach this stage of ecological transition, which you discussed with one of the questions that Yanis asked you. And also the other one was about going from to a more global way of thinking. My question is, if you had to make a graph to show the transition of humanity from the one stage to the other, where would you put us now? In those 2 graphs that you showed us, at what point would you put us? Because we have the information, we have the knowledge, but we are just a very small proportion of the global population.
Yeah. Well, if I well understand, because I lost some word, but if I well understand your question, yes, is quite clear. I think is quite clear that what we call a Western country have a responsibility for what happened in the 20th century, more or less, because the majority of pollution, the majority of carbon dioxide emission, the majority of extinction are led by the economy of a Western country. This now is changing. It's changing because the economy of China, of India, of Brazil are rising, so they have a larger impact. And also the number of population are changing. As I told, it's quite impressive if we think that in future, in Nigeria or in Ethiopia, there would be more inhabitants than in Germany or in France or Spain and Italy altogether. So this is something that really changes the world. We need, on the other side, to recognize that the economic power of a Western country is still much larger than those countries. So I think maybe this can be difficult for our decision makers, because they have to explain that they need to raise money. Maybe you are in the Senate House of Germany and you have to explain to your electors that you need money for the farmers in Philippines or in Bolivia or something like that. That I understand is not easy, but it is their job and not mine. And so and I think this is a part we needed to do, and exactly because we have a part of economic power, and we have also a large part of the knowledge to drive this transition in a correct way. We needed to share with the others. I don't know if this happens exactly also because I think nobody's really happy when they asking you money for something else, but I don't see any other option to have a transition that can be peaceful and not aggressive.
Thank you, Emilio.
Thanks.
There are also 2 more questions in the chat.
Okay, let us.
So if you want, you can read it.
The past year, at least regarding West world, we can see a sharp decline in birth rates, mainly due to the global financial situation, since population. Yes. Okay, so she was asking about the decline of population in Western country. And this is a good news or a bad news. It depends. Obviously, for the society, it's quite clear. We have quite clear, and this is an ecology law that to maintain a stable population, so also a human population, we need a little more than 2 children for each woman. This means more or less that the population is stable. And obviously, in Western countries now, there is a larger decline. In other parts of the world, also the growth is declining, but in a slower way than in Western countries. I think probably all the hypotheses of Amartya Sen, a Nobel Prize of Economy from India, show quite well that the right way to have a peaceful slowdown of birth rates in human population is female instruction and female work. So then you don't need, in that way, you don't need the impositive systems of China, 1 child for couple, that obviously is something we don't like too much. I think as a species, we have the idea that the number of child is a question of a couple, and we don't want that the state. Well, we are not happy also if it's our mother-in-law discussing about that, and I think also the state can be worse, and so definitely. And the right way is to give to everyone the opportunity to study, to choose the job, and so also to choose when and if to have a child. And this probably is the right way.
There's another question.
Yeah. What do you think? The humanity in the future will be able to adapt to the difficult situation of climate change, or will be extinct. The future evolution of Homo sapiens will be the robust and artificially intelligent that will be more resistant to climate change and more friendly to natural resources. So I don't think that, for what I can understand, I don't think that in a short time, let's say 1 century or 2, the humanity goes extinct. If we don't manage this environmental crisis, the overall situation for humanity will be definitely worse than now. There will be people very unhappy because they live in places that become absolutely inhospitable, so they want to move in other part of the world, and they don't ask permission to do this. So if now we have problems with immigrants, I think in future will be much worse. But I don't think we go extinct in a short time. About artificial intelligence and robots is very far from my field, so I don't want to say nothing. I just suggest it's quite interesting. I don't exactly because I don't know too much. I'm not able to recognize if the author that is Yuval Harari, he say one of the dangers for the humanity in the future is artificial intelligence, because this lead a new revolution with a lot of useless people, because you don't need anymore so many humans for, so this can be something that we can think, but is too far from my field. And I am transdisciplinary, but not too much. And I was
yeah. Let me on this note. There's no other question. Okay, let me ask a controversial one. We're talking about climate change, and the planet, at least as a whole, is worried about climate change. But are we really worried about life on Earth, or about our own lives as a species? And if it's the second, does it really matter? I mean, we're just one more species in the planet. Species have gone extinct along the geological eras. We might go extinct as well. Earth would not stop functioning, probably. My wild guess is just going to enter a cycle of glacial. Well, we continue the cycles of interglacial glaciers, but shorter or longer, that I cannot predict, and we'll see go extinct, and we're going to be replaced by other species as it happened in the past.
I do agree. This is probably what certainly what will happen to Homo sapiens as well as any species. But since normally the mean time for a mammal species is 1 million of years, we have still something to spend, and and then obviously this biodiversity crisis lead a lot of species to extinction too early, and it is quite clear that the history of Earth is a history of changing life, and is similar. In that way, probably the point is that losing those species, we lose also species that we need, and also lead to an ecological collapse to some systems. And then now you see that someone is suggesting, okay, we can lose some insects because we have artificial drones that pollinate plants, but it seems to me quite crazy, and I think it's not a good way. Or if maybe yes, then if this happens, we can survive in some way. But, okay.
Thank you. Anything else? Any other questions from the platform or the classroom? No. Just like that. Okay. Well, in that case, if there's nothing else, I would like to thank once more Emilio for the stimulating talk. Thank you for attending, both in the platform, the online platform, as well as those who are present today in the seminar room. And well, wish you good evening to all of you. Thank you again.
Thank you.